Dr. Seuss wasn't a children's author. He was a political provocateur who spent 30 years creating anti-fascist, anti-consumerist propaganda, and studios buried almost all of it. While The Cat in the Hat generated $650 million for Random House between 1957 and 1991, Dr. Seuss's most important work, his World War II cartoons mocking Hitler, his experimental animations attacking American capitalism, his banned anti-nuclear shorts, was systematically erased from public memory. CBS didn't just own the rights to his TV specials, they owned his image. And they spent 40 years constructing the wholesome Dr. Seuss myth by vaulting everything that revealed who he actually was. That's not curation, that's historical revision. Today I'm revealing 10 of Dr. Seuss's unseen cartoons that expose how a radical political artist was transformed into a safe corporate brand, and what we lost when studios decided profit mattered more than truth. Number 10. Private Snafu. Dr. Seuss made explicit military propaganda, and it's shockingly brutal. You know Dr. Seuss from Green Eggs and Ham, but in 1943 he was writing cartoons where American soldiers get venereal disease from prostitutes, die from malaria because they didn't use netting, and accidentally reveal troop locations to Japanese spies who then slaughter entire units. Private Snafu wasn't metaphorical, it was explicit. Theodore Geisel, Dr. Seuss's real name, was stationed in the Army's 1st Motion Picture Unit alongside Frank Capra, and his job was simple: make soldiers terrified of making mistakes. So he created Snafu, a bumbling private whose errors get people killed. In A Lecture on Camouflage, Snafu ignores camo instructions. A Japanese sniper spots him instantly. The next scene shows his unit's bodies. In Booby Traps, Snafu triggers a mine. The explosion is graphic. These cartoons were never meant for children. They were classified military training films shown exclusively to troops. But here's what matters. Dr. Seuss was already the artist who made The Cat in the Hat. And his instinct, when given freedom, was to create content about death, disease, and consequences. The whimsical children's author was always a myth. The real Seuss drew bodies. Number 9. Our Job in Japan. Dr. Seuss's post-war cartoon was so controversial, the Army shelved it for 50 years. In 1945, Dr. Seuss made a cartoon explaining America's occupation of Japan. The Army banned it until 1996. Our Job in Japan depicted Japanese citizens as victims of militaristic propaganda, argued that harsh occupation would create resentment and fuel future wars, and directly contradicted General MacArthur's policies. Seuss interviewed Japanese citizens, studied occupation strategy, and concluded that America was repeating the mistakes that created World War I. His cartoon advocated for compassion, education, and rebuilding rather than punishment. The Army's response? Vaulted. For 51 years, Our Job in Japan existed only in classified archives. When it finally screened in 1996, historians called it shockingly progressive and decades ahead of its time. Dr. Seuss was right. But being right didn't matter. The Army wanted propaganda that justified their actions, not cartoons that questioned them. That pattern, Seuss creates something radical, institutions bury it, defined his entire animation career. Number 8. Design for Death. Dr. Seuss won an Oscar for a documentary arguing America created Japanese fascism. In 1947, Dr. Seuss won the Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature. The film argued that American isolationism and economic policy directly enabled Japan's militarization, and that the atomic bombs were a moral failure. Design for Death was a 50-minute documentary Dr. Seuss co-wrote with his wife Helen Palmer, blending animation with wartime footage. The thesis? Japan wasn't inherently evil. Japanese citizens were victims of propaganda enabled by Western powers who exploited Japan economically, then abandoned them diplomatically. When Japan militarized, America responded with racism instead of understanding. And when America dropped atomic bombs on civilians, it proved that fascism's core belief, that violence solves everything, was universal. This wasn't subtle. Seuss used his Oscar acceptance speech to argue for empathy toward former enemies and international cooperation, RKO Pictures, which distributed the film, buried it immediately after its limited release. By 1950, Design for Death was impossible to find. It didn't fit the Cold War narrative that America was purely good and enemies were purely evil. Dr. Seuss spent 2 years making a film arguing that America shared responsibility for fascism. Hollywood gave him an Oscar, then erased the film. That's how you control a legacy. Reward them publicly, bury them privately. Number 7. Gerald McBoing Boeing won Dr. Seuss his second Oscar. Then UPA removed his name from all sequels. In 1950, Dr. Seuss published a story about a boy who could only speak in sound effects. UPA Animation adapted it into a short. It won the Oscar for Best Animated Short. UPA made 5 sequels and a TV series, and removed Dr. Seuss's name from every single one. Gerald McBoing Boeing was pure Seuss, a story about a child ostracized for being different, saved only when someone monetizes his uniqueness. The original short credits "Story by Dr. Seuss" in opening titles. But when CBS greenlit a TV series in 1956, they credited "Created by UPA." When UPA made theatrical sequels, Gerald McBoing Boeing's Symphony, Gerald McBoing Boeing on Planet Moo, the credits said, "Based on characters by UPA." Dr. Seuss protested. UPA's lawyers cited their contract. They owned adaptation rights, which included character rights, which meant Seuss had no claim to anything created using Gerald. Legally, they were correct. Morally, they were thieves. Dr. Seuss created the character, won the Oscar, and watched a studio build a franchise on his work while erasing his name. By 1963, when parents asked who created Gerald McBoing Boeing, the answer was UPA. Dr. Seuss's name had been systematically deleted. That's not adaptation, that's appropriation. Number 6. The Hoober-Bloob Highway. Dr. Seuss made an anti-birth cartoon that aired once, then disappeared. In 1975, Dr. Seuss wrote and produced a TV special arguing that being born is optional and children should consent to existence. CBS aired it once at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. Parents lost their minds. CBS never aired it again. The Hoober-Bloob Highway follows Mr. Hoober-Bloob, a dispatcher who sends souls to Earth. But before each soul departs, Hoober-Bloob explains what life entails: pain, work, disappointment, war, environmental destruction, death. Each soul then chooses whether to be born or return to the void. The special's climax features a montage of pollution, poverty, and violence, while Hoober-Bloob asks, "Still want to go?" Most souls choose life anyway, but some don't, and Hoober-Bloob respects their decision. CBS executives didn't read the script before production. When they watched the finished special, they panicked. This wasn't whimsical. This was existential philosophy questioning the fundamental assumption that life is inherently good. Parents called it traumatizing. Religious groups called it anti-life propaganda. CBS pulled it from all future broadcasts. The Hoober-Bloob Highway aired February 19, 1975. It didn't air again until VHS releases in the 1990s. For 20 years, CBS acted like it didn't exist. Dr. Seuss made a cartoon about consent and autonomy, and the network responded by denying audiences their consent to watch it. Number 5. Pontafel Pock and His Magic Piano. Contains Dr. Seuss's most explicit anti-corporate message, and ABC edited it out. In 1980, Dr. Seuss made a special about a factory worker who escapes capitalism with a magic piano. ABC cut 11 minutes that directly attacked American labor practices. Pontafel Pock, Where Are You? Follows Pontafel, a worker in a pickle factory who's fired for incompetence, then given a magic piano that can transport him anywhere. The full script included scenes where Pontafel visits other factories and discovers all workers are miserable, where he confronts his former boss about unfair wages, and where he realizes the piano was given to him by the Fairy of Escapes, who helps workers dream of leaving instead of organizing to change their conditions. The special's original message: escapism is a tool used by powerful people to prevent collective action. ABC's Standards and Practices flagged these scenes as promoting labor unrest. Dr. Seuss was told to remove them or the special wouldn't air. He refused. ABC removed them anyway, citing creative control in their contract. The broadcast version portrayed Pontafel's escape as purely positive, wish fulfillment instead of critique. Dr. Seuss's original cut ran 37 minutes. ABC's version ran 26 minutes. Those 11 minutes contained the entire point. But ABC was owned by Capital Cities, a conglomerate that had just faced unionization efforts in multiple divisions. They weren't about to broadcast a children's special arguing workers were exploited. The full version exists in Seuss's archives. It's never been released. What we saw in 1980 was corporate-approved fantasy. What Seuss made was anti-capitalist critique. Number 4. Dr. Seuss directed. An Oscar-winning anti-dictator. Cartoon in 1942, then quit animation for 20 years. Before The Cat in the Hat, before Horton, before any book that made him famous, Dr. Seuss made a cartoon called Hitler Lives that won the Academy Award for Best Documentary Short. Then he abandoned animation completely. Hitler Lives was a 15-minute short arguing that fascism wasn't defeated with Germany's surrender. It was alive in America through racism, nationalism, and authoritarian impulses. Using footage of American Nazi rallies, Jim Crow laws, and political corruption, Seuss argued that Hitler's ideology had simply moved locations. The final line? The disease that made Hitler isn't dead. It's in remission, and if we're not careful, it will metastasize everywhere. Warner Brothers, which distributed the short, pulled it from theaters after 3 weeks. Too controversial, too political, too accusatory toward American audiences who wanted to celebrate victory, not examine complicity. Seuss's reward for winning his first Oscar, watching his work disappear. He didn't direct another animated project until 1966, 24 years later. When asked why, Seuss said, "I learned that animation studios don't want truth. They want product." He'd won 2 Oscars before publishing his first children's book, but animation taught him that his ideas would always be secondary to corporate comfort. That's the gap. Dr. Seuss won Oscars for anti-fascist, anti-American cartoons. Then he switched to books because books had no executives who could cut his message. Number 3. The Butter Battle Book TV special was so controversial. TNT delayed it twice and added a disclaimer. In 1989, Dr. Seuss adapted his own anti-nuclear allegory into a TV special. TNT was so terrified of conservative backlash, they added a disclaimer saying, "The views expressed do not represent TNT's position." The Butter Battle Book is Dr. Seuss's most explicit political work. 2 societies, Yuks and Zooks, escalate a butter-spreading disagreement into nuclear standoff. The book ends with both sides holding bombs, frozen at the brink of mutual destruction. The TV special keeps this ending. No resolution, no safety, just 2 civilizations about to annihilate each other over nothing. TNT acquired rights in 1987 but didn't air it until 1989, and only after Reagan left office. Conservative groups had already attacked the book as anti-American propaganda and Soviet apologia. TNT executives worried advertisers would pull out, so they added a disclaimer. The following program represents the views of its creator, not Turner Network Television. They distanced themselves from Dr. Seuss's message before audiences could even hear it. The special aired November 13, 1989. The same week, the Berlin Wall fell. Conservative media claimed Seuss's anti-nuclear message was outdated now that America had won the Cold War. But Seuss wasn't arguing about Soviets. He was arguing about human nature. The nuclear threat didn't end with the USSR. It just found new actors. TNT aired The Butter Battle Book twice. Then, never again. Too risky. Too political. When Dr. Seuss died in 1991, TNT's obituary called him the beloved children's author. They didn't mention they'd been too afraid to stand behind his actual beliefs. Number 2. Dr. Seuss created. A completely experimental, non-narrative Halloween special, and CBS killed his next 3 projects. In 1977, Dr. Seuss made Halloween is Grinch Night, a surreal, plotless fever dream with no educational value and no clear target audience. It won the Emmy for Outstanding Children's Special. CBS responded by canceling every subsequent project Dr. Seuss pitched. Halloween is Grinch Night has no story. The Grinch emerges during a sour, sweet wind, brings hallucinogenic nightmares to Whoville, and leaves. That's it. No lesson, no character growth. The special's centerpiece is an 8-minute psychedelic sequence where a Who child experiences horrifying visions. Abstract shapes, melting faces, Boschian landscapes. It's pure experimental animation. Dr. Seuss called it what I actually want to make. CBS executives hated it. They'd expected another How the Grinch Stole Christmas, a special with commercial appeal, merchandise potential, and annual rerun value. What they got was art. The special won the Emmy, but ratings were mediocre. Parents called it too weird. Advertisers complained it wasn't family-friendly. CBS had 3 more Dr. Seuss specials in development. They canceled all of them. When Seuss asked why, an executive told him, "We need Grinch to sell toys, not win awards." CBS wanted predictable content they could rerun forever. Dr. Seuss wanted to experiment. Halloween is Grinch Night airs occasionally on cable, but it's remembered as a failure. Proof that Dr. Seuss lost his touch. That's the narrative CBS constructed. The reality, he made exactly what he wanted, and the network punished him for it. Number 1. Dr. Seuss's estate vaulted. His anti-consumerist cartoons to protect his licensing deals. Here's the thesis. Dr. Seuss spent his entire career attacking corporate greed, consumerist culture, and profit-driven destruction of art. His estate now generates $33 million annually by doing exactly what he condemned. Dr. Seuss Enterprises, the company controlling his legacy, earns revenue from Seuss-branded merchandise, theme park attractions, and licensing deals. In 2012, Universal paid an estimated $10 million for film rights to The Lorax, Seuss's anti-corporate environmental parable. The movie made $348 million, spawned endless merchandise, and included product placement for Mazda. The Lorax, a character who says, "I speak for the trees against corporate logging," was used to sell SUVs. The estate could release Seuss's political cartoons, Designed for Death, Our Job in Japan, his private Snafu work, his wholesome editorial cartoons attacking fascism. These works are educational, historically significant, and represent his actual worldview. But they're locked in archives because they complicate the brand. You can't sell Lorax plushies to kids while their parents watch Seuss cartoons arguing that American capitalism enables fascism. In 1949, Dr. Seuss published a cartoon in PM magazine showing fat businessmen choking the earth with pollution while saying, "More, more, more." In 2023, his estate licensed his characters to Amazon for a Prime Day commercial. The Lorax, the character Seuss created to attack corporate greed, was used to promote the world's largest online retailer. That's the cost. Dr. Seuss created anti-fascist, anti-corporate, anti-consumerist art. His estate makes millions by erasing that art and transforming him into exactly what he despised, a brand that sells products. The wholesome Dr. Seuss isn't who he was, it's what corporations needed him to be. So there you have it. Dr. Seuss wasn't wholesome. He was a political radical whose most important work was systematically buried. From his anti-fascist Oscar winners to his anti-corporate TV specials, studios and estates spent 70 years constructing a safe, marketable version of an artist who spent his career attacking everything they represented. When artists become brands, you don't get their truth, you get their product. From Dr. Seuss's buried political cartoons to the next video, where Warner Bros. Built a $9 billion empire by erasing every voice actor who made their characters iconic, threatening lawsuits against anyone who claimed credit, and systematically destroying evidence that these people existed. The pattern of corporate theft that sanitized Seuss was just the beginning. Watch that next to see how studio erasure became industry standard and why the voices you grew up hearing died trying to prove they mattered.